Concentration is the ability to pay attention without being distracted. Everyone is able to concentrate when we are interested in something. For instance, we are able to concentrate when we watch our favorite show, listen to our favorite song, play our favorite game, or pursue a favorite hobby. We are very concentrated when we taste something amazing or see an attractive person. These examples demonstrate the capacity of the consciousness to maintain a continuity of attention when it is interested in the subject that it is attentive towards. The problem is that our attention is attracted to objects of desire. And as the Buddha taught, desire is the cause of suffering. We do not know how to place attention without desire. We are easily drawn to pay attention to our desires, fears, anxieties, or anger. In fact, this is the basis of our modern culture. Advertising depends upon our desires. Social media depends upon our desires. All modern entertainment utilizes our desires, whether because we find pleasure in lust, watching violence, feeling fear, anger, or pride. When someone hurts our feelings, it is very easy for us to pay attention to that pain and sustain that attention for long periods of time. We can live an entire lifetime constantly paying attention to a trauma in our psyche, but that is a mistaken use of attention. It does not resolve the pain, but strengthens it, and traps our consciousness in it further. That is just one way we cause suffering for ourselves and others. We concentrate on the wrong things. Concentration on the objects of desires strengthens the desire and lengthens our suffering. An addict is very concentrated on their addiction, but the result is suffering. A compulsive person is very concentrated on their compulsions, but the result is suffering. A greedy person is very concentrated on their greed, while a lustful person is very concentrated on satisfying their lust. But in each case, suffering is only increased. Concentration is a power of consciousness, but in us it is trapped in our desires and defects. The first steps of meditation start to free that ability from its cage. Concentration is critical in our spiritual development, but it requires that we change and liberate our power of concentration from our defects, vices, and mistaken ways of perceiving. This requires effort and a precise method. Usually, when people try to learn meditation, they try a few times, but they are immediately confronted by their wild state of mind. That unstable mind that is constantly darting from thought to thought, sensation to sensation, memory to memory. A surging chaos of thoughts, emotions, memories, anxieties, pains, uncertainties. Seeing this in ourselves is overwhelming, painful, and frustrating, so people give up. Most people who have an interest in meditation stop before they even truly begin, because when they see the reality of their mind, they cannot face it, and they are not educated in how to deal with it, so they walk away. Instead, they go looking for something easier. Some theory, master, or group that will give them a spiritual guarantee, make them feel good about themselves, so they can forget the reality of their mind. Naturally, that goes nowhere good. Spiritual progress depends upon facing reality, and that reality is in the mirror, staring us in the face. Meditation is not for escaping the truth. or avoiding reality. It is about facing the truth, understanding it, and learning how to change for our benefit and for the benefit of others. We have already discussed the preliminary steps of meditation. Now we are ready for step 6, concentration. Dharana is fixing the consciousness in one place. Dharana is concentrated and directed attention, which is a function of consciousness. Consciousness is like light. It is insubstantial but present. It is not something that is easily defined, but it is easily recognized. Concentration directs the light of consciousness and focuses it. To develop concentration, we take all of the available power of the consciousness and focus it on one thing. When dispersed, that light is weak. Yet when focused, it can cut through anything to see its true nature. This is the purpose of meditation. If you have a very difficult problem, and your mind is very unsettled, distracted, and chaotic, then you will not be able to concentrate. Thus, you cannot solve your difficult problem. The consciousness does not have sufficient focus or strength to cut through the obstacles and see the truth. But when our mind is calm and relaxed, and the consciousness has concentration and energy, it can see through any problem, and the answer becomes obvious. The ability to concentrate attention on one thing is a preliminary technique for any spiritual life. As a lamp placed in a windless spot does not flicker, to such is compared the yogi of controlled mind. The steady flame that is not flickering corresponds to a state of consciousness that is concentrated, where the light of consciousness is focused and still. Now consider this. If you want to make the flame still, how will you do it? By holding the flame? By pushing it with your hands or your breath? Of course not. You will instead limit the movement of air in the room. Concentration practice is exactly the same. You cannot develop concentration and a calm mind by force. This begins with the state of our mind. What is our psychological condition? Is our mind a windless place that does not flicker? Not yet. What are the winds that move the flame? Thoughts, sensations, emotions, memories, worries. That is why we follow the steps of meditation. The first 2 steps reduce the winds. The rest of the steps increase our stillness. Naturally, when our attention rests on one thing, our consciousness is perfectly still. It isn't moving. It isn't going anywhere else. Concentration is to place attention on one thing. This gives us the ability to gaze steadily on anything we want to understand. When we want to understand a painful event in our life, we can meditate on that event. We sit in our good posture and become perfectly still and relaxed. We perform some pranayama to deepen our stillness and relaxation and calm our mind. We withdraw our attention from the external world and we access the state of pratyahara. We concentrate on the memory of that event. We visualize it. When concentration becomes very strong, we are able to easily visualize that event and hold attention on it without effort or distraction. Even the pain of that event does not distract us from being able to focus on it with serenity and patience. Concentration, steady and unwavering, is like a focused beam of light that penetrates what it is focused upon. Eventually, it reveals something. This is dhyana, absorption, real meditation. Here, we see the event as a lived experience, real, not imaginary. In other words, our internal senses are opened and we see. If we can avoid responding to this with our sense of self, the ego, and continue to observe it impartially, without emotion or thought, then we can enter samadhi, the eighth and final step of meditation, which is the experience of reality. Here, we can see and understand the truth of that event, the root causes, the reality. In this experience, there is no I, me, myself. There is no sense of self. Instead, the consciousness is completely free of conditioning, and we penetrate into the nature of that event, understand the causes, the consequences, the chain of events that led to it, and in the midst of that, through the perception of that memory, comes understanding. The consciousness, no longer bound by the pain of the event, or by pride, shame, or fear, is in its natural state, and is able to look into that trauma impersonally, without attachment, fear, resentment, or anger. It can gaze steadily into it with serenity and find understanding. With that perception and the understanding that comes from it, the trauma is immediately weakened. The consciousness that was trapped within it can then be freed. That is how you reach liberation from suffering. That is the point of meditation. Let us emphasize here that this kind of experience is not imaginary. It is not fantasy. It is not invented by the mind. Samadhi is a direct experience of reality, far beyond our external senses, personality, name, or mind. Experiences in samadhi are starkly real, more real than anything we have experienced in our physical body. By accessing that state of consciousness, which is the state of meditation, we are able to free ourselves of the conditioning that produces suffering. This is how every angel, master, Buddha, or God became that, by freeing themselves of all those traumas, pains, desires, and mistaken notions of self. Now you can see how much power there is in meditation. It enables you to gaze serenely and steadily into anything in order to understand it. This is how the great masters have solved the unsolvable, seen the unseeable, understood the incomprehensible. We too can do this, but we must follow the steps, and we must change. Dharana means concentration, holding, firmness. The word dharana can also be used for our ability to remember things. When we have good concentration, we have a better memory. It is not as hard to study or to recall information. Dharana relates to our ability to pay attention. If you cannot pay attention, you cannot meditate. Meditation arises only once you know how to pay attention steadily. Please notice carefully that steps 1 to 5 are about attention. Truly practicing them requires that you are paying attention carefully all day long. Thus, you are developing concentration all day long. Dharana also relates to our ability to understand. It is the power to grasp an idea. All of these meanings circle around the central issue, the ability to focus on one thing. When we have good concentration, it is similar to having a sharp knife. With a very sharp knife, you can do very precise work very quickly. With a dull knife, everything is harder and more dangerous. You are more likely to hurt yourself with a dull knife because you have to apply much more force. Concentration is similar. When you cannot concentrate, you have to work harder. It is exhausting, and the results are poor. When you can concentrate very well, it is like having a very sharp knife. You can cut through anything easily and quickly without effort. When the consciousness is trained to concentrate, there are many effects that come along with that ability. First, the attention is then under the control of the consciousness, not the ego, not desire. So when we want to place attention on something, we can, because we are in charge of ourselves. We are not controlled by desires, fears, anger, or lust. Consciousness is in control. That is very valuable. It means that in any situation in life, no matter how challenging or difficult, or how subtle, the consciousness can maintain control over our life and not let anger, pride, or lust intervene or distract us and cause us to make mistakes. It also means that you can maintain steady self-control even in very grave circumstances. If you are in an airplane that is suddenly in danger, do you want a pilot with great concentration or one who's very distracted and keeps checking his social media? Nowadays, a moment of distraction can cause incredible suffering. One moment of being distracted can kill. When you're driving a car, if you become distracted for an instant, you can kill yourself or others. One moment of being seduced by your anger, pride, envy can cause you to make grave mistakes in your life. When you have good concentration, you can complete tasks. Most of us can start a task, but do not finish. We are inspired to start a new project, diet, or exercise, but then, when it gets difficult, we give up. Behind us is a trail of unfinished ideas. When we have good concentration, we can remain focused and reach our goals. A worker with great concentration will work more effectively, efficiently, quickly, and easily. A student with great concentration will learn faster and more easily. Someone with a health problem who has great concentration will heal faster, because they will not be distracted by doubt, fear, or pain, but will focus consistently on their recovery. Along with this ability to control attention and hold it steady comes a great confidence. Great confidence in oneself means a reduction of fear, a reduction of stress and anxiety. And confidence is accompanied by joy and serenity. Anyone can acquire all of these benefits if we train ourselves in concentration. But first, we need to admit the truth of our current state. In each of these lectures, we have given you exercises. How long are you able to hold attention steady in your practice without being distracted? Is it for 1 breath, 5 breaths, a minute, 3 minutes? How long does it take before you become distracted? And once distracted, how long do you remain distracted before you realize it? Are you distracted more of the time or concentrated more of the time? When you conclude studying this lecture, you might remain aware of yourself for a few minutes after. But how long does it take before you are distracted again and forget yourself? Moreover, how many times during the course of this lecture have you been distracted and lost the continuity of what we are discussing? Be honest and watch for it. For most people who are beginning to learn about meditation, they can scarcely hold attention for a single breath because their mind is so wild. But a skilled person who has trained in concentration can hold attention on one thing without distraction for hours. In fact, they may not even have a single thought. Most people have a wild mind that is tossed back and forth by impressions, and the consciousness is unable to control it. This is a mind that is totally distracted, constantly leaping from one thing to another, without any self-control at all. Some call it monkey mind, or bird-like mind. And it is like a bird that is always leaping from branch to branch, or a monkey that is chasing one desire or another. Our untrained mind is always running here and there, looking for what it desires. Instinct is all that drives it. We have no cognizance of that, no self-awareness, no self-control. All the mind wants is to satisfy its hungers, and most of humanity lives that way, in an animal, instinctive way. The consequences of having a mind like that, a wandering mind, is the life of an animal, lived by instinct for instinct. It never understands itself or its place in the world, and eventually dies in ignorance. The condition of our world is the result of this kind of mind. The wandering mind has no advantages, but many disadvantages. The way to fix this is to study the teachings and to practice moment-to-moment self-observation and daily concentration practice. Someone who realizes the disadvantages of that wandering mind will want to practice meditation, which always starts by concentration practice and moment-to-moment self-observation. However, while attempting to direct attention from moment to moment, they discover that they can only do it briefly before becoming distracted again. Thus, they have moments of awareness separated by longer times of being distracted. In Raja Yoga, this level of concentration is called mudha, which means forgetful. If you have been practicing some kind of meditation for a while, you know that you can remember that you are meditating for a few breaths or a few moments, but most of the time you forget you are meditating because you are distracted. That is mudha. Occasionally, you remember yourself. Occasionally, you are attentive and aware in the moment, but most of the time, you are forgetting. That is mudha. The way forward is to increase the intensity of self-observation throughout the day. Train yourself to be present, in the moment, aware of what you're doing in all of your daily activities. This requires intense effort, constantly, in all activities. Someone who is rigorously training themselves to be constantly present and aware is starting to be aware more often than they are forgetful. This leads to the third type of concentration, vikshipta, which means gathering. In this stage, one is aware and concentrated more of the time. The times of being distracted are shorter. We are gathering our attention more consistently. This indicates that the person is starting to form a center of gravity in the consciousness. Previously, They had no conscious center of gravity at all. Instead, the winds drove the mind and body randomly here and there. With Vikshipta, mind and body are becoming stable, consistent, and the consciousness is steadying. But we still need to solidify more. The way forward is to withdraw from distractions and gather all of our attention onto one object, both in meditation and when we are active during the day. Moment-to-moment awareness needs to be more and more steady and consistent, and we need to increase mindfulness during concentration practice. Mindfulness means continuity of attention, to increase the times that we are aware of what we're doing. The fourth type of concentration is ekagrata, which means one-pointed. One has this quality of attention when one no longer forgets that one is meditating, and one no longer loses attention from moment to moment. In other words, you do not forget yourself. When this person meditates, they place attention and it remains steady, without being distracted by anything. They can place attention for as long as they want, and it remains steady. They do not forget they are meditating. They still have ego, thoughts, sensations, and distractions, but the consciousness is not distracted by them and does not waver. It is held firm on the object of attention. The way forward from here is with more meditation. Specifically, one needs to let go of subtle desires, even the desire for spiritual experiences, meditation, or samadhi. The mind must become completely desireless, totally empty. The fifth type of concentration is called niruddha, well-restrained. This is perfect concentration, and is perfectly established in all areas of life. That is, someone who has this degree of concentration is very vigilant and aware at all times, even when the physical body is asleep. In the state of niruddha, the mind is absolutely still. There are no thoughts at all, unless we wish to think. Otherwise, the mind is totally silent. People who have reached niruddha are rare. Many claim to have it, but they do not. Those who do remain silent, because pride destroys it. So does materialism, lust, envy, etc. For our purposes, as aspirants on the path, what we really need to understand are types 1 through 4. To be able to recognize those qualities in ourselves, and to understand that the level we are in now can be transformed. It can be done. It has been done, and there is a science to do it. If we apply ourselves and have the will to change, we can do it also. We also have to be aware that we can lose it simply by being lazy or indulging in bad habits. Development of concentration does not come as a gift from God, or because you are special, or because you belong to a certain group or live in a certain country. Meditation depends upon cause and effect. If you produce the causes, the effects will happen. The causes that take us through these stages of concentration are within you, not outside of you. Advancing through the stages of concentration is not difficult. If your concentration is not improving, the causes are easy to find. Steps 1 to 5 are preparation for meditation. They provide the foundation for meditation. If you are not able to access the state of meditation, or even concentration, it is because the previous steps are not well established in your life. So, study them and put them into practice. Most of the time, the problem is in steps 1 and 2, our ethics. Most of the people who want to learn to meditate are unable to because they are unwilling to change. They are attached to their pride, anger, and envy. And because of that, they are conditioned by choice. If you want to progress rapidly in meditation, then rapidly improve your ethics. Consciousness is transformed towards samadhi as all-pointedness dwindles and one-pointedness arises. The fourth stage of concentration is where someone has developed sufficient will of attention that they can remain focused on a given object without distraction. You reach that by letting all-pointedness dwindle. So, what is all-pointedness? The way we live now, with the mind completely distracted. All-pointedness is the tendency to be distracted, hungry, seeking impressions. That hungry, instinctive tendency seeks distraction, new sensations, seeking pleasures all the time. That is what must dwindle. Observe our lifestyle. The mind is always looking, seeking, wandering. We are always distracted. We multitask. That is not a virtuous act. It is a symptom of deep distraction. Consider it. Attention is a finite resource. And rather than focusing that resource on one action to do it well, you disperse it among many. And what is the result? Rather than doing one thing well, you will do 5 things poorly. To develop concentration, we must be gathering attention and focusing it on one thing at a time. To do this, one must abandon the tendency to be distracted. Consciousness is transformed towards one-pointedness as subsiding and arising are rendered similar. We are distracted by the arising and subsiding of thoughts, sensations, sounds, feelings, images, dreams. Subsiding and arising also implies past and future. If you observe the nature of your distracted mind, it tends to bounce between past and future. Traumas and worries or pains from the past, longings and hopes for the future. Very rarely is the mind concerned with the present moment. To render subsiding and arising similar is to see all these phenomena as the same. This is simply a deepening of pratyahara. In pratyahara, sensory perceptions become distant, abstract. As concentration deepens, anything other than our focus is also abstract, distant. This is an experience, not a thought or an idea. When you see a cloud, you see it for what it is, a passing illusion. You do not ascribe meaning to it. When the consciousness stabilizes, it sees everything in that way, as passing illusions. Subsiding and arising are similar. Concentration is a training exercise, and it is necessary. If you want to learn to be an Olympic athlete, you have to do a lot of training of many different types. If you want to learn to be a meditator, the primary trainings are ethical and concentration. Do everything that you do with total concentration. When you're doing your job, do your job with full attention and awareness. This means you have to renounce that lie called multitasking. If you build things, then take each piece with great concentration and put them together with all of your skill, with all of your attention. If you do that consistently, you will become a highly valued and successful builder. If your job is to serve other people, then serve each person with full attention and great kindness. Everyone will appreciate it, and you will be highly valued. Moreover, and best of all, you will be developing concentration. When you are driving your car, focus completely on driving. Turn the radio off. Put the phone down. Concentrate. Learn to enjoy the silence. When you're walking, just walk. Do not think. Stop thinking all the time. Learn to just be. Learn to be where you are, doing what you're doing. When you are brushing your teeth, just brush. Don't think. Let the mind rest. Focus on what you're doing in the moment, constantly, in all things, in all places, in all ways, and you will develop concentration rapidly, and your mind will become very steady and calm. From this simple change, your whole life will change. If you cannot concentrate during meditation, it is because you are not concentrating at any other time. So learn to concentrate on one thing at a time in everything you do. At least once a day, do concentration practice. Follow the steps we've already explained. Relax, become still, and practice pranayama for a little while. Then withdraw from all the senses and focus within. When you are totally relaxed and still, focus your attention entirely on one thing. In the beginning, it is best to focus on something physical, like a plant, the moon, a stone, a candle flame, and observe it steadily. You can do this with your eyes open. Little by little, as you develop more concentration, close your eyes and visualize a subject, like a mantra, an image of a deity, a passage from Scripture. In the beginning, short sessions are a good idea. Start with 10 minutes. If you can do that several times a day, that's even better. Gradually, as you start to enjoy it and get some benefits, increase the time little by little. Most importantly, when you are doing this exercise, do not fight with your body or your mind. Relax and be still.